You're not invited to the wedding. The text from my mother was brutal in its simplicity, piercing the silence of my lonely apartment like a blade. No preamble, no sorry, not even a hint of emotion. Just the cold, blunt reality. Lily's family doesn't want you there. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the message as I tried to process the words. My stomach churned. So this was it. This was how they were going to do it. They'd never said it outright before, but they'd made their feelings clear in every side-eye, every veiled comment, every exclusion. Now it was official. So you chose status over family, I typed back. The words were calm, controlled. But beneath the thin veneer of composure, something was bubbling: fury, betrayal, years of pent-up resentment. Without a second thought, I tapped send. Then I closed my phone and walked into the living room. The tiny apartment I'd called home for the past few years now felt like a cage. I stood there for a moment, staring out the window at the chaotic city below. I wasn't angry yet. No, not angry. Just numb. There was nothing left to be angry about. They'd done it to me before, over and over. Not as loudly, not as directly, but always just enough to make me feel like a ghost in my own family. The jabs disguised as jokes, the forgotten birthdays, the time Lily became the daughter they always wanted and I was just there. Always there, always the helper, always in the background. I'd coordinated the wedding venue, paid the deposit when no one else could, found the dress boutique, organized the catering. Heck, I even designed their website, paid for it out of my own pocket. They had no idea I was the one who made it all happen. I just did it, quietly, expecting nothing in return. But now, they had their perfect picture. Their flawless little tableau. No Jack. No one who questioned things, who dared to ask what happened to the $3,000 catering deposit or the bill for the venue. They didn't need me anymore. They were perfect without me. I grabbed my laptop, opened the wedding planner account, and I deleted everything. Every photo, every contract, every file I had uploaded. All 63 of them. The folder was renamed, Good Luck Without Me. I didn't warn them. I didn't tell anyone. Let them figure it out when the florist calls, when the photographer doesn't show. Let them panic when they check the venue reservation and see the message, unfortunately, this reservation has been cancelled by the account holder. Let them feel it. They thought I would stay silent. They thought I'd just accept it, smile, swallow the bitter taste like always. But this time was different. This wasn't just about a wedding. This was about something that had been festering for years. The final straw in a long line of wounds. They wanted me gone. Well, wish granted. They just didn't know I'd take everything with me when I left. I could already hear them, of course. Oh, Jack, you're overreacting. You always do this. It's not that big of a deal. But let me rewind to 6 months ago and show you how it all started. It was a Friday night. Lily's voice cracked over the phone. Zach had been laid off. The apartment they rented was 3 months behind on rent, and the landlord was ready to throw them out. Please, Jack, Lily pleaded, I don't know what to do. Without thinking, I transferred $3,800 from my savings. Told her not to worry about it. I didn't even flinch. This wasn't the first time. It wasn't the second either. It was the third time that year I'd bailed them out. The first was when Dad had drained his retirement fund by accident, and he needed $5,000 to avoid penalties. The second was when Mom forgot to tell me that Lily's bachelorette Airbnb was on my credit card, and the girls trashed the place. I kept records. Screenshots. Not because I planned to use them, but because I needed proof. Proof that I wasn't crazy. Proof that I wasn't imagining the slow, steady drain of time, energy, and money into a family that saw me as their silent ATM. But it wasn't just the money. It was the way I was treated. Like a servant. Like I was invisible. Dad joked once, while I was fixing the gutters in the middle of a thunderstorm, that maybe I should get a job as a house husband since I wasn't man enough to be the breadwinner. Everyone laughed. Even Lily. Mom told me I was too sensitive when I brought it up. He's just old school, she said, brushing it off. But I had a feeling it wasn't just old school. It was something darker. And when Lily got engaged, she called me over FaceTime to tell me, while Mom and Dad sat behind her, cheering her on. They had planned the proposal with Zach. Gone ring shopping with him. And me? I found out through a phone screen. That should have been my first red flag. But like a fool, I still tried. I still believed. If I helped enough, maybe they'd finally treat me like I mattered. When I paid for the engagement shoot, the save the dates, the venue deposit, when I spent hours, money, and energy on a family that didn't care, I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd come around. But they didn't. And now, They had their perfect picture. They didn't need me. I took a deep breath and deleted everything they'd worked so hard to build. The wedding, the dreams, the illusions. Every little piece of their perfect world was gone. And they would have no idea what hit them until it was too late. The first cracks started forming when Lily's engagement shoot cost $600. I should have known right then when I paid for the wedding website, designed their custom invitations, and even covered the venue deposit because Mom's card was on the fritz. I wasn't building their dream wedding, I was building their dream life brick by brick while they fed me leftover scraps and treated me like a good sport. The first text came from Aunt Megan. "Hey, I heard you're not invited to the ceremony. Is that true?" Then Uncle Jeff texted, asking, "Did you say something to Zach's dad?" "Just curious." But the one that really cut? It was the Facebook post. Lily and Zach, posing in front of their picture-perfect rustic barn, their smiles beaming in the glow of fairy lights. The caption, "So proud of our family. Can't wait for the big day with all the right people by our side." I wasn't even tagged. I scrolled through the comments. One of Lily's friends asked, "Is Jack going to be there?" He was always so funny. Lily's response? "We're keeping things small. Just people we trust." That night, I didn't sleep. I went over every receipt, every email, every time they called me selfish for asking to be reimbursed. The realization hit hard. I was the only one in this family who gave without expecting anything in return. And I was the only one who ever got nothing in return. A week later, I got a group text, "Hi family. Can everyone pitch in for Lily's bridal shower decorations? Jack, since you're so good with websites, can you make a landing page for RSVPs? Hugs and kisses." I didn't respond. 10 minutes later, Lily texted me directly, "Can you just do this one thing without being passive-aggressive?" So, I did something else. I logged into the wedding venue account and requested a refund for the $2,500 deposit. It wasn't refundable, technically. But I had bought wedding insurance on the booking. A tiny checkbox no one noticed. I filed a family conflict claim. The venue refunded 90% of the money. Then, I went into Canva and deleted every design I'd ever made, the RSVPs, table assignments, welcome signs, all gone. One new file appeared, titled, "Asked Zach's dad to fix this." I shared it with the whole family. 3 hours later, my phone rang. It was Mom, hysterical. "What are you doing? Do you know how this looks?" I calmly responded, "I do. That's why I'm doing it." Dad called next. He skipped straight to yelling, "You've always been jealous of Lily. That's what this is. You couldn't stand her having a better life than you." I held the phone away from my ear and hung up. That night, the messages flooded in. Lily posted a vague Instagram story, "Betrayal always comes from those closest to you." Mom followed it up with a photo of Lily crying at what was supposed to be her wedding prep. The caption, "Nothing hurts more than your own brother trying to ruin your special day." Friends, cousins, people who hadn't talked to me in years, all reached out with the same question, "Why would you ruin her wedding?" I didn't reply. Not a single message. Then came the envelope. A yellow one, no return address. Inside, a printed screenshot, Lily's group chat with her bridesmaids. Lily was laughing. "We'll get Jack to pay for the cake, too. Just guilt him about being the only brother. Works every time." Another message, "Zach doesn't even like him. He said Jack gives him the creeps. LOL. And then, he won't be at the wedding. I'll make sure of it. Watch." A sticky note was attached, "You deserve better. K." I didn't know who K was. But I would. And when I found out, everything changed. K didn't just have screenshots. K had audio. And the second I heard it, I knew exactly what I had to do. The rehearsal dinner was at a pretentious vineyard 30 minutes outside the city. They called it rustic luxury, but it was just a marketing scam, with overpriced wine and fairy lights stapled to trees. I walked in, clean, calm, focused, because I wasn't here to eat. I was here to bury the circus. Lily was mid-toast when I walked up. Zach had his arm around her. Mom avoided my eyes. Dad looked uncomfortable. They hadn't expected me. They thought I'd be the villain in their story, the bitter brother who couldn't let go. But I wasn't bitter. I was done. I walked to the front, tapped a glass to get their attention. Conversations froze. Someone laughed awkwardly. Lily frowned. I pulled a small speaker from my jacket and placed it on the table. Then I held up a flash drive. Zach stood up. "What are you doing?" he asked, a hint of fear creeping into his voice. I looked him in the eye. "Giving you exactly what you deserve." I clicked play. The speaker came to life. Lily's voice. We'll get Jack to pay for the cake too. Just guilt him about being the only brother. Works every time. Silence shattered. Someone gasped. A fork clattered. I didn't flinch. Another voice. Another message. Zach doesn't even like him. He said Jack gives him the creeps. LOL. Zach turned white. Lily lunged for the speaker. I stepped in front of it. Sit down, I said, and for the first time in my life, Dad sat down without a word. I turned to Lily. I spent over $11,000 on this wedding. I designed your website. I negotiated your venue. I paid your florist. I did it because I thought, stupidly, that this was family. Lily's mascara ran down her face. She was shaking. You don't understand it, she said. No, I replied. You don't. You never did. You didn't want a brother. You wanted a wallet. Then I pulled out the folder. Hard copies of everything, screenshots, texts, receipts, the PayPal transactions, the invoices. Everything they had done, everything they had tried to sweep under the rug. I looked around the room. Any questions? Zach opened his mouth, then closed it again. My father stood up, furious. You think this is appropriate? You think this? Sit down, I snapped. And for the first time in my life, he did. I handed the papers to Zach. You still want to marry her? I asked, my voice calm, but with an edge that sliced through the tension in the room. He stared at the pages, his gaze flicking back and forth between the printouts, but there was no answer. Then, a figure stood up from the back. A woman in a gray coat, her badge gleaming under the dim lights. She had a phone in her hand, and there was something about the way she held herself that commanded attention. Hi everyone, she said, her voice smooth but strong. Sorry to intrude. I'm Kristen. Jack and I used to work together. I also run a digital forensic agency. Jack asked me to verify some files. She looked directly at Lily. Just to confirm they aren't fakes. She raised her phone, tapping it lightly. This audio, it's 100% authentic. No edits, no splices. Pulled from a WhatsApp backup linked to your old number. Don't worry. I have the metadata too. Lily's mouth dropped open. Mom gasped. Dad barked, is this a joke? Kristen smiled, her eyes sharp. Not even a little. Then came the twist. Zach turned to Lily, his face pale. You told me Jack said those things to you. That he threatened you. That he was unstable. He held up the printouts, his voice trembling with disbelief. You lied. Lily reached for his arm, panic creeping across her features. No, Zach, I said don't touch me, he snapped, pulling away. And then the room exploded. Aunt Megan was on her feet, yelling. Someone knocked over a glass. My mother tried to speak, but her voice caught in her throat. The chaos was so thick, you could feel it hanging in the air, sharp and bitter. Through it all, I stood there. Silent. Calm. Watching it burn. And when the screaming hit its peak, I raised my voice one last time. I'm not coming to the wedding, I said, coldly, decisively. You already made that decision. But now, you can do it without my money, my help, or my silence. I turned to my parents. You cut me out the moment you realized I wouldn't play the puppet anymore. So now, I'm cutting the strings too. Just as I turned to leave, Zach's voice cracked through the chaos. I'm calling it off, he said, his voice clear, resolute. Lily screamed. A shrill, sharp sound that pierced the air, like glass shattering. You can't do this here, she cried. Oh, I said, turning back just as the door swung open, he just did. And I walked out. No dramatic music. No slow motion. Just the sound of everything they'd built, everything they thought was perfect, collapsing behind me. I didn't drive home after the rehearsal dinner. I didn't even get on the highway. Instead, I took a side road, heading north, somewhere quiet, with no signal. A month earlier, I'd signed a lease on a tiny cottage in a forgotten part of the state. Population, 600. One diner, one gas station. No one cared who I was there. That's exactly why I chose it. I paid 6 months up front. No forwarding address. No digital breadcrumbs. Just quiet. For the first 3 days, I didn't turn on my phone. Didn't check emails. Didn't speak to a soul. I sat on the porch with a thermos of black coffee, listening to birds argue over territory they'd never really own. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. No more tension in my neck. No more guilt. No one asking for money. No one pretending to love me just long enough to get a transfer. On day 4, I went into town and signed up for something I'd been too ashamed to pursue before, an archival preservation course at the local college. History. Dusty newspapers. Forgotten letters. Finally, I was surrounded by things that kept records honestly. There was no performance here. No manipulation. No you owe us. Just work. Quiet work. I volunteered at the county museum. Helped catalog photographs from the 1950s. Fixed an old microfilm machine. And for once, I didn't care that no one noticed, because it was mine. Quietly mine. The messages started showing up about a week later. Old Gmail inbox. A link to my emergency phone. I didn't read the first few, but the subject lines were clear enough. Can we just talk? You went too far. We're still family. Then came the blocked calls. Dozens of them. I left the phone off. They weren't trying to make peace. They were trying to reset the game. What scared them wasn't the evidence. It was the silence. They couldn't handle not knowing what I'd do next. Because for the first time in my life, they weren't in control. 3 weeks later, I got a court notice at my old apartment. Apparently, my father had tried to sell a portion of family property. What he didn't realize was that I'd locked the deed 2 years ago after he accidentally tried to remortgage it without my consent. I'd left it sitting in legal limbo. Waiting. He triggered the clause himself. Result, his deal collapsed. The buyer walked away. And my father was hit with a fraud investigation. Not because I made it happen, but because I didn't stop it. I didn't post a blog. Didn't send screenshots to the group chat. Didn't make a big scene. I just vanished. No birthday calls. No financial rescue. No maybe next time. And that? That was what truly destroyed them. Because narcissists don't fear consequences. They fear irrelevance. They fear a stage with no audience. One morning, I walked to the post office. Not for letters, just a small package I'd ordered. Behind me, in line, someone was talking on the phone. I overheard something that made my heart skip a beat. I heard Lily's fiancé walked out before the wedding even happened. Then, apparently, her brother disappeared. Took all his money with him. I never looked back. Not a single word, not a single explanation. I didn't clarify anything, I just became unreachable. No address. No phone number. No access. They thought silence was weakness. They didn't understand it was a choice. A quiet, surgical goodbye. Not with words, but with absence. The kind of absence that can't be twisted, that can't be manipulated. It forces them to sit with the weight of what they did, to feel the space I left behind, the emptiness where their expectations used to be. They can't guilt me anymore. They can't call when the rent's overdue, or the credit card's maxed out. They can't pretend everything's fine when they need another favor because there is no we. There's just them and a mailbox that says, no message received. Funny thing, though. When you finally walk away from the people who've built their lives on top of you, they don't fall immediately. They stand there, stunned, like someone turned off the sound and they can't find the volume button. That's what happened. After everything burned, after the rehearsal, after the calls, after the silence, they still believed, deep down, that I'd come back. Because I always did. But this time, I didn't. I changed my number. Not just a simple SIM swap. New carrier. New country code. No forwarding. No auto-reply. Just nothing. I closed the joint account Dad had linked to me for emergencies. Redirected my bank statements to a private digital vault. Updated my medical power of attorney. Removed all family names. Changed the emergency contact on my driver's license from mom to nobody. They don't know where I live. They don't know where I work. They don't even know if I'm in the state, the country, or even above ground. And that kills them. A month ago, I drove by the wedding venue, the one I canceled. It was abandoned, empty. A faded for sale sign hung crookedly on the front gate. A wilted bouquet lay crushed in the gravel. It felt right. I rolled down the window. The air smelled like rain and regret. Before I left, I did one thing. I walked over to the mailbox beside the main entrance and slipped in a small envelope. No return address. Inside, I placed a printout of the last invoice I paid for the wedding, along with a post-it note stuck on top. It read, "Thanks for nothing." I stopped checking the old email long ago, but every now and then, I log in just to watch the flood. One unread message had the subject line, "Please just talk to us." I didn't open it. Another, "We don't know who you are anymore." That one made me smile, because finally, they were right. I'm not the person who covered their bills at 3 a.m. I'm not the emergency contact. I'm not the wedding planner, the free therapist, the invisible sibling, or the guilt-ridden son. I'm just a guy with a different life now. A life they can't reach. A life they can't taint. A life they can't rewrite. Last week, I got a new mailbox. Metal. Clean. Lockable. One of those secure Dropbox that doesn't let anything back out once it's in. The technician asked me what name I wanted engraved on the plate. I told him, no name. Just a message. So now, just below the keyhole, on a little brass rectangle, it says, "This box does not accept apologies." And the silence I hear every day now? It's the loudest thing I've ever known.